Good morning, everyone. This is a short presentation on what we came up with on the modifications and guidelines for our strength conditioning programs, sports skills and camps for this summer due to COVID-19, which has obviously put us out of commission for a while. We'll proceed through this fairly quickly because you can always look back at it. Some timelines to consider and some limitations or prerequisites you may want to consider. June 1 through 5 should be a planning stage. We'll go through these a little bit more later in the next slide or so. June 8th is a probable start date for our camp. Everything that we do, we need to consider our risk mitigation, both inside and outside. And what about camps and leagues? We'll look at those at the end of the slideshow. June 1 through 5, visit your administration, review your guidelines both locally and state and federally, and take into consideration activities inside and outside. Again, this is a planning period. Visit your student athletes about the same things, about what's going to be required of them, and review a plan for both inside and outside activities. These plans should include social distancing, sanitization, the fact that locker rooms and showers and all should be locked down. Athletes are not to share water. Encourage them to bring their own drinks. If possible, have them bring their own individual equipment that they can use within the context of your summer skills and drills and conditioning. Pre-screen the athlete and the family in regards to fevers, coughs, flu-like symptoms, and other things. A good probable way of doing this would be through phone, email, Google Doc questionnaires, etc. After visiting with several of our coaches, TAPS coaches, and UIL coaches, is determined that obviously COVID-19 had taken time away from us. So as in consideration of that, our staff has talked about using a 15 contact hour rule this summer, where you can actually work with your students up to 3 hours per day, 5 days per week. That part of that 15-hour rule is to include sports specific, which was time that we didn't get to do much of, and drills and skills for all sports. Follow your guidelines suggested by your school, your city, your state, and CDC, and implement these into the summer programs. There's a slide coming up which one of my UIL friends is using, but it's like the slide after the next one, so we'll get to that. Bear in mind that these summer activities cannot be required. They must be voluntary in nature by the student athlete. Beginning June 8th, if you already have this all set into place, you may begin sometime in June 1 through 5, but make sure that's in place. Better target date again is June 8th. And again, I mentioned the 15-hour rule. A little breakdown on that. As below, you have some flexibility with it, but it should include a maximum of 3 hours per day, or could include up to that amount. It doesn't have to be that amount, but strength and conditioning up to 2 hours per day, sports skills up to 1 hour per day is the first break. If you choose to split that down the middle and work an hour and a half on strength and conditioning and an hour and a half on sports specific drills and skills, that's up to you. Put the plan together, but above all, keep the guidelines in mind as far as health. These are maximums and not minimums. No camps or league activities for a couple weeks if you can do it without it. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Athletes should come dressed for all activities. The 15-hour rule does not include camps and leagues which may come into existence. Misspoke on that just a little bit. Thank you for forgiving me already. Again, can't be emphasized enough. Athletes should bring their own snacks and drinks and should not share, which is always a deal. Matter of fact, you ought to outlaw water bottles and drinking containers that have any capacity to be shared if at all possible. Here's a sample workout of a friend of mine who coaches as a UIL. He actually has come and spoke at our clinic in football for a couple of different times. Good coach, good organizer, so it's something to consider. He's opted out for a 2-hour plan, which obviously he feels to be sufficient in getting done what he needs to do. This is a small school of about 75 students, so it really compares to a lot of hours. He has 8 to basically 10 workout in the morning. In the afternoon or evening, he conducts a workout 6 to 8. So these are 2-hour sessions. They basically mirror each other, and that's what they are. He has done this so that kids can have some flexibility when they come, but note that he's broke it all down pretty nicely. He hasn't listed the exact drills and skills that he may use or what he may do in the weight room, but he's doing some things to catch up due to the COVID-19. Forgive the misspelling on Friday. My secretary made a mistake. Something to consider in weight training, running and agility. And then anything you can do outdoors is good because you can spread out. And again, athletes can only attend 1 session per day. So they have to choose if you have multiple sessions. Obviously, the running and agility training can be best achieved outdoors anyway. So keep your athletes spread out. Remember, no more than 15 athletes to a group. You can have them work on opposite ends of a field. It still be 15 to a group, or you can break them down into smaller groups and work with them one-on-one with each group, or however you may do that. But be sure to keep those kids spread out. Sport-specific drills just a little bit, because I know we try to get way ahead of ourselves from time to time, and I had to actually stop and think about these myself. Drills for that specific sport that may help. Skills for that sport. Free throws, for example, proper way of doing that. Batting cage activities, how to bat, how to keep your eye on the ball, so to speak. Use of passing nets in football. Any other individual skills that you may want to do would be fine, as long as you can possibly not share that equipment. We encourage you not to share equipment. Have the athletes bring their own balls, or have those sanitized and issue a ball at the beginning of that segment and sanitize them afterwards. Big thing is prepare for sanitization and remember to follow the CDC guidelines. Mask, sanitize, social distancing. 3 basic criteria. Things that you need to avoid is any type of teamwork, any drill which avoids pairing or use of same equipment if at all possible. Any drills that involve any type of competitive situation, anything which violates the social distancing rules would probably include the top 3 completely. So try to avoid those things unless you figure out a way to avoid contact, or unless you figure out a way to honor the social distancing. Again, 15 max, 15 to a group is a good deal, or 15 per coach. Proper spacing, maintain it. Again, as I said previously, you can spread up on the field a little bit, get out there and be outside. Have a maximum of 30 athletes per session period. Any more than that would probably be a risky situation. Use masks, avoid sharing equipment. Whenever it is possible, again, let them bring their own. Prepare to sanitize your equipment after and before each session. When dealing with the weight room or indoors, keep small groups so that you can maintain the social distancing. Use the mask again. Start out summer with light weights so that maybe you can not have to spot, maybe some sort of speed weight type program. Try not to pair these kids up or put them in 3s. If spotting is necessary, it's not something we encourage, but sometimes it is necessary. Make sure that things are wiped down and clean, and sanitization takes place. A good idea is to get away from a rotation type series where you go from station to station and have the athlete conduct all of his weights or weight training at the very same station. That station should be clean before any athlete uses it, and as soon as the athlete finishes. So it's going to be clean before and after, and sanitized at that station. Make sure that takes place. That's probably the biggest thing, as well as the maintenance of your social distancing. Camps. We realize that a lot of you depend on summer camps to raise funds for your athletic programs, and we encourage that as long as you can do that based on the CDC and local and state guidelines, etc. 5-day max. You cannot work on Sundays with a maximum camp of 4 hours per day, which is pretty common. Again, maintain those CDC guidelines, community, state, and federal guidelines. You can have 2 sessions a day, but an athlete can only attend 1 session at the camp. A lot of camps have 2 sessions, 1 in the morning for young kids, 1 in the afternoon for the older kids, or vice versa. No towels should be on site, no food, no drink is to be shared. Laundry should not be washed. Come dressed for the activity. Come dressed for the activity. And if they can have balls that they can bring for your camp, let them bring their own balls or whatever equipment you may need for that camp. Leagues, as I understand, nobody is having any league play in June. However, they are anticipating, as I've read and noticed through emails that I received from camp holders, that they may pick back up in July. 6-on-6, 7-on-7 in football, the same. Try to refrain from these until we get a little bit better for clarification on some of our activities that we can continue. And I'm sure that when we get that clarification, this league play will sprout right up. Thank you for being patient with me this morning and patient with the whole plan. I know it's been a tasky situation. We'll see you guys at our meeting on Monday for the new ADs and on Tuesday for all athletic directors. Have a great remainder to your summer.